This is the Canon Rebel T6, an old camera, but one I'd argue is still relevant. This was my first interchangeable lens camera, and I'd argue a great first camera. Even though I have an M50, I still prefer my T6 for stills for a lot of reasons. By far my favorite thing about this camera is the ergonomics. It's the perfect size, not massive like some professional DSLRs, but at the same time, not minuscule like some mirrorless cameras. All of my fingers fit onto the grip, and all the buttons are on the right side, making one-handed operation not only possible, but downright easy. The buttons are well laid out and do everything I need them to. The dial is laid out right behind the shutter button, making it easy to change your exposure, and the shutter button is large, easy to find, and very easy to press. The mode dial is too large and has around 12 too many settings, considering all you would want or even need is manual or video modes in my case. There aren't any buttons that are useless. Nikon, Sony. The battery and card share a door at the bottom of the chassis, and the I/O is on the left side. The I/O consists of a mini USB port, mini HDMI, and a 2.5mm remote trigger port. Not a 3.5mm aux jack, contrary to popular belief. The strap lugs are made of metal, and so is the hot shoe with full ETTL2 flash support. The next best thing about this camera is the speed of it. Not the shutter speed, not the frame rate, the fact that this camera is always ready to go, every single hour of the day. My M50, even though it has better specs, isn't quite as fast or reliable as this bad boy. The T6 has crazy battery life, and if you're not shooting all day, it is ready for almost anything, at least in my experience. When I shoot this camera, I always know what I'm getting. There's no surprises of something randomly not working. I can whip out the T6 from my camera bag and be ready to shoot in 5 seconds every single time, because it's a fast camera, because the buttons are well laid out, because everything just works. It works with every EFS and EF lens I own, and even some really old ones I borrowed. This is why I love Canon. Every camera is just the same. Every camera just works. It's not like a Nikon where I have to check whether my AFD lens is compatible with my body. Everything just goes. The autofocus is as fast as any lens you can put on it, from the garbage kit lenses to ones with ultrasonic motors, and it works well with dead-on accuracy until I start to have trouble seeing anything other than the camera screen or viewfinder exposure readout. In addition, this is a tough camera, having survived being dropped multiple times, general abuse, heavy rain, and even an explosion without anything breaking. Even though the T6 is just 18 megapixels, 6 lower than industry standard, it doesn't really matter because you'll never use more than 8 of them. While it doesn't seem great numbers wise, my best pictures have come out of this camera, and a Canon 50mm f1.8 or another dirt cheap lens that can be had for under $100 used. On top of that, if you're not getting good photos with the DSLR that has similar specs, that's a skill issue, not a camera issue. The battery life is good, and although it's rated for 600 shots, I can usually squeeze out 700 or even 800 shots at an event. This camera boils down to a no BS entry level DSLR, where once you get your settings, you never fiddle with the menus again. If you're experienced, it's just a minute to get your settings into the camera, and then you never touch them again. For example, I haven't even thought about my menus for a whole 5 months, which is basically since I figured out how I like to shoot. Now, when I go to photograph anything, I just pick up my camera, get my exposure where I want it, and start shooting. No figuring out menus and stupid crap like that. It just goes.